Thank you. You may be seated. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister. Ambassador the Honorable Audrey Marks, Minister of Efficiency, Innovation and Digital Transformation. The Honorable Robert Montague, Minister with responsibility for land, titling and settlement. And Ministers of Government, as I proceed with the protocol. The Honorable Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. The Honorable Orvin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. All other ministers present. Ambassador Rocky Mead, Permanent Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister, and all permanent secretaries present. Mr. Harish Natarajan and the World Bank team. Dr. Wayne Robinson, Senior Deputy Governor of the Bank of Jamaica, and the team from the BOJ. Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica. Chief Technical Directors, Heads of Agencies and Departments. Leadership of the private sector present. Ladies and gentlemen, all, good afternoon again. Now, this event, led by the Ministry of Efficiency, Innovation and Digital Transformation, is meant to be a bringing together of government, financial sector leaders, and international development partners, yourselves. And it seems to have worked because you're all here. So thank you for being here. It is a pivotal moment in Jamaica's digital transformation journey, and this moment is pivotal for two key reasons, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the first, we're going to be having the formal launch of the World Bank Report on Financial Inclusion in Jamaica, and alongside the Digital Grant Preparation Facility, which you'll hear a lot more about as the evening progresses. And second, this event is to facilitate a policy dialogue where stakeholders can be aligned on the future of digital financial services in Jamaica. Now we have to speak with us representatives from the World Bank, or minister in charge of this area. We also have to speak with us the leaders of the Bank of Jamaica, and we expect our Prime Minister will be joining us as the afternoon progresses. Our Minister of Finance and the Public Service, the Honorable Fayval Williams, wanted to be here, but unfortunately she is unavoidably absent. And so without any further ado, my name is Theodore Henry. I'll be here on and off to guide us through the events of this afternoon. And let me guide you into the first presentation that we have this afternoon. This will be from Harish Natarajan, Practice Manager, Financial Inclusion and Infrastructure, Finance, Competitiveness and Innovation at the World Bank. A little bit about Mr. Natarajan. Mr. Natarajan leads a global World Bank team focused on financial inclusion and digital finance. That includes payments, market infrastructure, that includes credit infrastructure. Now, he works and represents the World Bank in international working groups, and he has helped shape initiatives in several countries. Please help me welcome Mr. Harish Natarajan.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. And observing all protocols, all the honorable ministers, senior officials from government, colleagues from the industry, and of course my colleagues from the World Bank. It was a very warm welcome, and thank you. And it's a very interesting room, a pineapple. And I was thinking what inspired this, and then also very interesting quotes from Jamaican leaders and leaders from all over the world. So I will take about 20 minutes to present a recent report we have been working on. It's about digital finance in Jamaica, and I'm looking towards the colleagues there to project the slides, and also if you can give me the clicker so that I can manage the presentations myself. Okay. Now, I'm having to go do some moving around because I am conscious that I'm a big man by size and I'm blocking half the screen. So let me try to move, but I also understand that there's a live streaming, so I have to speak to the mic. The genesis of this report is, okay. So the genesis of this report is actually based on a request from the Gates Foundation to do a study to look at groups of countries, one group being the ones which had significant progress on digital finance, and the other group being countries which have had moderate success. And Jamaica was classified as having moderate success based on metrics like number of adults making payments and the level of adoption of digital payments in the country. The study helped identify some broad patterns of what determines the success of digital finance in a country, and we hope that it provides some inputs into the reform agenda currently being pursued in Jamaica. A few reflections before I get on to the... Go backwards? Okay. Yeah. So, kind of moving forward to the to some high-level insights, and then I will get to the specifics. So, firstly, what we see is while I said digital finance, it all actually begins with digital payments. So, kind of me and you are transacting, going about our daily lives, and making transactions as part of that, and then also, of course, all the financial market transactions and so on. When a country has strong progress in digital payments, it sets off a chain reaction, increasing efficiency for regular economic interactions, and also improving the efficiency of the financial markets, and the insights which can be seen in the data trails arising from payments can lead to better credit underwriting. And it is often said that you are able to find out more about a business or an individual by looking at the transactions than by looking at the credit score of that individual or the business. It also enables new business and distribution models for digital finance, and also, in fact, of the economy. So in a way, it also leads to the development of digital economy. And all of that, of course, leads to greater financial inclusion, economic development, and also more jobs and opportunities for the citizens and businesses of the country. There are a few critical success factors which you can deduce from all of these experiences across the world. The first is, and perhaps the most important, is a pro-innovation mindset of the policymakers and regulators. And this is about having a positive orientations towards innovation, and then, of course, reflecting that in their role as champions and catalysts, and developing appropriate innovation frameworks in the country, using which new players can enter, new business models can be introduced in the market. And related to that, of course, is the competition and market contestability, and then about principles and proportionate legal regulatory frameworks, and the digital public infrastructures and supporting digital infrastructures related to that. Alongside all of this, of course, the guardrails will have to be strengthened, which includes consumer protection, regulation, supervision, and oversight. Let me start by talking a little bit about the context in Latin America and the Caribbean. So as you can see, the dotted line is the case of Jamaica. And as you can see, Jamaica has been pretty much a leader from 2011 till about close to 2017 amongst all the different regions, and then also specifically Latin America. It was significantly higher than the average of Latin America, which is the red line, no? And you can see the gap between Jamaica and Latin America. And this is based on just the metric of how many adults have an account and percentage of adults particularly. And as you can see, Jamaica more or less maintained the lead all through, but the gap is narrowing. But when it comes to what people do with the account, using just a simple metric of digital payments, here you can see that Jamaica actually is below the median for Latin America. The median as in more countries, equal number of countries are on both sides, and Jamaica is actually below the median for Latin America in terms of number of adults making or receiving a digital payment. And that shows people have accounts, but they're not using it. And then if you go further in terms of the rise in digital payments in Latin America, it's been largely driven by a new class of systems being called as fast payment systems, which are basically connecting banks, non-bank providers, and allowing individuals and businesses to make and receive payments using mobile applications, using QR codes, 24/7, and receiving the money related to that within a second. And this is a global movement now. Over 100 countries have launched, and 10 plus in Latin America and the Caribbean region. And here you can see there are very clear signs. If I bring your attention to the left-hand side of the graph, you can see very clear inflection points from the time fast payments were launched in a number of countries. Brazil, Argentina, Costa Rica, all of them are seeing just fast payments alone are more than 150 transactions per adult. By comparison, all the digital payments put together in Jamaica is about 50 per adult currently. And in these countries, you see 150, and that is because it's not that they're making more payments. It is just that you can make more payments digitally in those countries than in Jamaica. And also you can see, if you look at the graph, if you split by the percentage of adults with an account and how many of them are making payments, you see more penetration related to that on the right-hand top quadrant. Here you see countries like Brazil, Costa Rica, Chile, Argentina, who all had very strong growth in fast payment systems. So in a way, you can see that the big move in Latin America has been because of fast payments. Now, coming to the Jamaican context, and here I will use some very high-level summaries. In a way, there is no clear path for the non-bank payment service providers in the country, new non-bank payment service providers to actually enter the market, compete with the incumbents. And this means that, in a way, there's some kind of a status quo, and the innovation is basically coming from the incumbents who might not necessarily have the right incentives. I see there are many of those institutions here, so please bear with me, and I will explain what I mean by that. There's a regulatory sandbox in existence in Jamaica, amongst the first to introduce in the region, but it needs significant reorientation because it's currently still requiring some partnership with an incumbent firm to actually enter the sandbox, which actually defeats the purpose of a sandbox. And then open finance regulations and data exchange framework, which helps you capitalize on the data trails, is still under consideration in Jamaica. At the same time, there are a lot of positives. There are the reforms related to the Twin Peaks, which is expected to significantly strengthen the consumer protection framework in the country. And then also you see a very strong Data Protection Act, which has been introduced, which is a very strong positive. Now, coming to the market structure and concentration here, there's a very high market concentration. It is not uncommon. Many countries have that. The two largest banks represent over 70% of banking assets. And in a way, they pretty much control the payments market as well. There are very significant entry barriers which perpetuate some of the existing status quo. And notably, the regulatory frameworks are not differentiated and proportionate, in a way inhibiting entry of new players. And then also the customer onboarding process is very difficult. So once a person has opened an account, he or she has no motivation to go and try to open another account. And that combined with the limited account mobility because of the culture of corporates basically having a deal with the bank of all the salaries being paid into a particular account, that also in a way perpetuates it. And lastly, there's scope for enhancing the cooperation and collaboration between the different regulators, in particular the financial sector authorities and the competition commissions. Looking to specifically on the financial infrastructure side, the financial infrastructure in Jamaica was introduced way back, and in a way, it has not fully benefited from the modernization. There is lack of full interoperability and near real-time settlement. It is dominated by commercial banks. The infrastructures are controlled by the commercial banks. And the payment fee structures, in a way, hinders the adoption of digital payments. It costs more to make digital payments than transacting in cash, despite it being more cumbersome. So in a way, cash is more attractive than digital payments. Credit reporting exists in the market. There are a number of players, but it is underutilized to some extent because the data submission is not mandatory. And there are also very exclusive contracts between data providers and the credit reporting companies, because of which you're not able to get the full benefit of some of the data which is available in the market. Of course, I need to note here that the Bank of Jamaica is focusing on strengthening the Credit Reporting Act, and that provides an opportunity to address some of these gaps. There are also the broadband cost, using a smartphone to access applications, etc., costs more than in peer countries. So 5.5% of GDP versus an average of 2 to 3% in other parts of other peer countries. And this is for a bundle of services. The National Identification Service is a strong positive, and that initiative will certainly help on the account onboarding and other initiatives. Let me quickly talk about some of the insights from a few other countries. So take the example of Brazil. It had a very dramatic rise, and it took quite a bit of time for the Central Bank of Brazil to get it right. They waited for a long time for the private sector to address these issues. And in a way, it was difficult because there were significant market failures which no one institution could address. And that's why the central bank had to step in and work to address this problem. There are a couple of key success factors here. Notably, they made it easier for a business to accept payments. They significantly lowered the fees for person to person, made it zero, in fact. And for small businesses, it was a very significant reduction compared to what it was before for them. And it's not just the people who already had an account who are making payments using PIX. It is now a lot of new players have entered the market, and a lot of new participants and a lot of new individuals are making payments. So this graph is not very clear, but what it's showing is even in the poorest districts, the poorest quartile of the population, they are making digital payments. So it is not just the rich segment of the population. So it has really become inclusive. Currently in Jamaica, about 50% of the population is making digital payments, and in Brazil it is 95+%. In Jamaica, only about 40% of the small businesses accept payments. In the case of Brazil, it is over 90% now. So that shows how deep it has penetrated. The other example, which is talked about quite a bit, is India. I think a lot of you are familiar with some of the developments in India. So let me go to a different country which doesn't get talked about much, which is the case of Ghana. So Ghana was a late mover in Africa compared to the countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and the others. It's only in 2015 that they really started focusing on digital finance. And they started with the e-money regulations. That led to significant changes. New entrants entered the market, and it spurred competition. Then they introduced interoperability, allowing customers of one mobile money provider to interact with the customers of another, introduced fast payment systems in the country, and you can see the figures here led to a significant surge in the mobile money transactions. And of course, they also introduced a regulatory sandbox, which provided entry to new business models, including testing with central bank digital currency there currently. And let me go to some of the key reform considerations for Jamaica, and I will conclude with this slide. It actually follows directly from the point I was making earlier. There is a need to strengthen the regulatory framework here to foster competition and innovation. And what I mean by this is to really look at how can you allow new entrants to enter the market easily, of course, with all the necessary safeguards. And then also, even for the existing banks and other institutions, how can they introduce new business models? I can imagine that it is difficult for the incumbents as well to launch new ways of doing things. And the second is about strengthening the payment infrastructure. So currently, there are significant barriers, there are high costs, and digital payment adoption needs to be accelerated in the country. And then about the data sharing frameworks, and then about competition, and also the oversight tools of the central bank is not just regulation, but it also the moral suasion and the pulpit that the central bank has. I think it could use that to really enhance the digital payments value proposition for the businesses and citizens. And lastly, of course, the market conduct supervision is a great area. If I may step back and look at it, say, from the year 2000, in the period 2000 to about 2015, Jamaica was a leader in digital payments. Amongst the very first few countries to introduce real-time gross settlement system, and also very forward-looking in terms of the regulations and all of that. But after 2015, I think Jamaica has ceded a lot of ground to other countries. And I think you're at a phase where now you can actually claim back some of that. There are a lot of reforms already underway, and I think there's an opportunity to capitalize on that. And we hope that this report provides you an opportunity and some insights which could be useful in the reform initiative. And from the World Bank, we are very happy to partner with you on this journey, and we will be happy to support as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Natarajan, and thank you for applauding. Those things make the event move faster and nicer, you know. So please keep that up. It was an illuminating case study, and now that we've had the case study, let's turn our attention to an update on Jamaica's digital financial landscape. And that update will be given to us by the Senior Deputy Governor of the Bank of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Robinson. Just a little bit about Dr. Robinson, should I or should I not? Everybody knows you, Dr. Robinson? I should, okay. So Dr. Robinson, he's a veteran Bank of Jamaica central banker with a PhD in economics, expertise in econometric forecasting and monetary and financial policy. He also has a track record of leading Jamaica's economic program and major monetary and financial market reforms. So now that you've been practicing the applause, please welcome Dr. Wayne Robinson.
Thank you very much, Mr. MC. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I can take it that all protocols are observed, but I must recognize the ministers of government present, the permanent secretaries, heads of institutions and departments, and of course our colleagues at the World Bank who we actually work very closely with. Let me first extend an apology for Governor Biles, who couldn't be here, but it is indeed a pleasure for us to join in this discussion and indeed the launch of this report. And we really want to thank the World Bank for the work that was done and actually welcome this report. I think the report sets the context and outlines the challenge that Jamaica face. My remarks are going to be set within that context and within the frame of financial inclusion. And in that respect, I just want to zero in on perhaps two key statistics that tells where Jamaica is, how far we've come, but also indicates the journey that we have to undertake. The statistics that we have on financial inclusion, as was presented, suggest that roughly 7 in 10 Jamaican adults have bank accounts. But more importantly, which I think for an emerging market country, that's not bad. But more importantly, only 3 to 4 in 10 persons have access to credit or use a financial product. Right? And that first underscores the challenge. By the way, I mean, some of this data, it's a couple of years old, and later on this year, the bank will be actually doing our own Findex survey. We're going to go out in the field to get some updated information. But what the statistics suggest is that we do have an issue with access to financial services, yes, but the more critical challenge is how do we turn that access into meaningful economic participation and wealth creation. That's the challenge. We have another related challenge, and that is in the payment space, which is the focus of this report. Now, interestingly, over the past 10 years, digital payments in Jamaica has grown by 306.8%. And when I say digital payments, we're talking about credit cards, electronic transfers, and so on. And another interesting factoid that today, about 72% of utility bills payments are made digitally. That's more than double the share 10 years ago. Now, again, for emerging market country at our level of development, that represents, a notable behavioral shift driven by payment reforms and sustained coordination across governments, financial institutions, and the private sector. However, as the report highlights, Jamaica lags behind Latin American and some Caribbean countries. DOMREP, for example, Costa Rica, for example. So herein lies the two big challenges that we have: to expand usage, and in that regard, how do we leverage digital financial services? Bank of Jamaica has been focused and concerned about this, and we're looking at it from three angles. One, financial education or literacy. Two, efforts to facilitate modernized payments infrastructure and solutions, particularly those payment solutions that targets the underbanked and the underserved. And the third element that we've been focusing on is strengthening the regulatory framework, as highlighted in the presentation. And we have three guiding philosophies, if you want to call it that way: education, access, and trust. So against this background, I'll just quickly speak to just some of the initiatives we have been pursuing along these lines, most of which I think many of you are already aware. And these relates to the payment infrastructure, regulation, and financial education. In terms of the payment backbone, we all know that digital finance cannot thrive without a strong payment infrastructure. Now, at the center of Jamaica's payment system is our JAMClear RTGS, the real-time gross settlement system operated and overseen by the Bank of Jamaica. And this, of course, is complemented by other payment infrastructure. Of course, there's the Multilink that is owned and operated by the banks. There's QNet that is also owned by the credit unions. But the RTGS is the core and the settlement facilities that we provide. And, Jamaica is one of the first Caribbean countries that actually went towards a real-time gross settlement system. And this settlement system settles large value and time-critical payments in real time, ensuring, importantly, certainty and finality of settlements across the financial system. In December 2025, we, working alongside with the banks, completed the upgrade or the migration of the JAMClear RTGS system to the ISO 2022 Global Messaging Standard. And the experts advise that this upgrade is expected to deliver clear benefits in terms of improved straight-through processing and enhanced interoperability with external payment systems. The long and short, we should be able to see more faster payments and settlements and fewer errors in the settlements. Of course, there were some challenges in December, but those have been resolved. So we're continuing to monitor how this upgrade will impact payments. We know there continues to be concerns about the time it takes to final settlements, and we know that there are concerns about the availability of the system on a 24-hour basis. And in this regard, I think we all agree that where Jamaica really needs to go is an interoperable instant payment rail that is available 24/7. And I can say, and the president of the Jamaica Bankers Association is here, but I can say I know that the banks, they are actively looking at developing such a system and facility. I won't speak to the timeline. I'll leave that to the banks. But we certainly are following up closely with the JBA on this. And I also know that the government of Jamaica has also been exploring a more efficient instant payment system, particularly for government services. So that is to come. But of course, we know that we need to accelerate the process. And we'll Bank of Jamaica working with the Bankers Association, and of course the government will try to accelerate the process as best as possible. But I should say these large-scale technology projects are very difficult to implement. They do take time, and they're fraught with lots of risk. Right? So we have to be very measured in our expectations. But rest assured that the Bank of Jamaica will continue to push on this front. In the meantime, however, you will know that Bank of Jamaica has also been working on an instant payment solution that is Jamdex. And Jamdex is particularly aimed at the unbanked and on the bank. The fact is, Jamaica, like many economies, we are heavily cash-based. We rely on a lot of cash. And you know, just interestingly, I mean, last week, you know, we're meeting with some central bankers, other central bankers in Washington. And the governor of the Central Bank of Sweden made a point. He said that if he should give his child or any typical child in Sweden a banknote or a coin, they would not know what to do with it. Because Sweden basically doesn't use cash. And I think really and truly that is where Jamaica should aspire to. Because while physical cash is familiar, it's safe, it's actually very costly to produce. It's actually very costly and difficult to distribute, to secure and manage. And of course, high physical cash usage also fuels the informality in our economy. And that is why we have started to focus on trying to roll out a central bank digital currency. Now, Jamaica was one of the early pioneers of this. There was no blueprint for this. There is no script. I mean, we are one of those countries who are actually developing the blueprint. But more and more, a lot of countries have been looking at implementing CBDC. About 48 countries are now piloting CBDC. We know that the European Central Bank in particular is aggressively pursuing CBDC. India, although India has UPI, the Indian Central Bank is also considering a central bank digital currency. And it's important because Jamdex will provide a secure, affordable, and convenient digital payments to support financial inclusion and the broader digitalization thrust of the government. It supports financial inclusion for the unbanked and underbanked, enables low-cost payments, improves the efficiency of government disbursements, and reduces the costs associated with cash handling. And importantly, it is interoperable. And the payment system experts will tell you one of the key features of any good payment system is interoperability. But to date, local adoption has been slow, with 2 banks having launched Jamdex wallets, and 2 more banks are in the process of developing and testing. And, you know, it's very interesting that we are seeing usage of Jamdex. Last year, the amount of payments that were used in Jamdex grew very significantly, well over 200% actually. However, the problem still remains that as a proportion of total cash usage in the country, it's still a very, very, very tiny percentage. As it is now, you can, and we've been seeing peer-to-peer transactions with Jamdex, and you can even make some government payments using Jamdex. For example, property taxes, traffic ticket fines, and fitness fees can be made using Jamdex, either at any TAG office or online. But the biggest hurdle that we have to try and overcome is that users are not able to conduct transactions using Jamdex at merchants, particularly medium and large size merchants that require payments via POS machine. And this has actually limited the take-up of Jamdex. We need to complete that node in the ecosystem. Now, Bank of Jamaica, we have developed a technology that will allow merchants to accept Jamdex at POS platform. And we are working with the banks to actually deploy this solution. Again, these technology-based solutions, deploying them across a wide and different payment platforms can be challenging, but we continue to press with the bank. And so hopefully towards the end of this year, we'll have some positive news. But it's important to note that again, this is another important innovation that Jamaica actually needs. Although the central bank is doing it, it's not intended to replace private innovation, but instead it complements the existing payment instruments and provides a good platform that strengthens the wider digital ecosystem. And we think, similar to India, it will complement an instant payment rail. Let me go quickly to talking about regulation. Innovation, we know, brings opportunity, but it also introduces new risks, such as cyber threats and third-party outsourcing failures. But Bank of Jamaica has adopted what I would say is a pro-innovation, risk-aware regulatory approach that is focused on outcomes. We have a phrase internally, regulating innovation responsible. A key component of this approach is what is called the FinTech Regulatory Sandbox for short, that has been operational since 2020. And it allows FinTech firms, anybody with ideas in terms of providing financial products, to test new products in a controlled environment. And to date, more than 50 applications from over 40 entities have entered the sandbox, covering solutions such as mobile wallets, debit cards, and prepaid cards. 23 entities have been approved to date to offer these products. But of course, as the report highlights, we need to move beyond the card-centric digital payments infrastructure. However, to do this, to effectively supervise and incentivize innovation in the fintech space, we need to strengthen the regulatory framework. And against this background, working with the Ministry of Finance, amendments are being drafted to the Payment, Clearing and Settlement Act to strengthen Bank of Jamaica's regulatory powers regarding the licensing, regulation and supervision of payment service providers, and also strengthen the oversight for what is called financial market infrastructures. The amendments are also expected to strengthen, importantly, the AML-CFT regulatory oversight of the payments sector. And of course, this was one of the key recommendations of the report. So we are already on the way there. But ministers, as you know, the legislative process in Jamaica, for good reasons, is very, very involved. And it takes rounds of reviews from different entities. The final thing I just want to highlight in terms of what we're looking at is in relation to financial education, building trust. When we talk about advancing the digital economy, it's all well and good to say that we have the technology in place, but it's important that we bring the people along with class, particularly those that are not as digitally savvy for various reasons. Accordingly, Bank of Jamaica has been refocusing its financial literacy campaign, and I hope you'd have seen some of it already. And we've been focusing our messages on matters relating to customers' rights and responsibilities, because, again, this is a concern that we constantly get from the public, from the whenever we go to cabinet or whenever we go to parliament. This is a constant cry. We have also been focusing our messages on fraud and cyber crime. How do we deal with that? How do you protect yourself as an individual? We have also issued guidelines to financial institutions regarding cybersecurity, governance, operational resilience, and risk management. So let me conclude by just talking about looking ahead. While Jamaica has made significant progress, challenges remain. And we are working on these challenges, both the central bank, the government, and the financial sector. But for Bank of Jamaica, our North Star is what is called an open banking ecosystem. What do we mean by this? This is a financial sector or a financial sector framework where not just DTIs, not just the banks, but also non-bank players can come into the space safely, or fintechs, and they can curate individual customer-specific products and services, one. And two, importantly, customers will have the freedom to choose and to move between different services and products that are offered. That's where the world is actually, and that's where Jamaica needs to go. The building blocks of this ecosystem are one, the modernization of the payment system legislative framework to facilitate greater fintech, the introduction of a centralized electronic KYC utility to assist with onboarding and account porting. Again, this is a concern of the public, just the time and the effort it takes to open a bank account. And we're working with the bankers on this. And also, very importantly, Jean is here. We're getting a lot of help from the World Bank with this. And we really appreciate the help from the World Bank. In fact, just this morning, early before day this morning, the World Bank facilitated a peer-to-peer exchange with the Central Bank of Mauritius, who has an EKY facility. So we really appreciate the World Bank, again, partnering with Jamaica on this regard. And the third pillar, the third building block, of course, is the rollout of an interoperable instant payment solution, such as Jamdex and other upgraded faster payment rails. With this in mind, let me just therefore again reiterate our appreciation for the work of the World Bank, and we really welcome strong partners like the World Bank on this mission to ensure that the digital finance works for every Jamaican, strengthens our economy, and enhances national resilience. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Dr. Robinson, we appreciate the fascinating look that you have given us at the work of the BOJ in the digital financial sector. And now to give us some insight into the larger agenda, please, Minister Marks. Can I say something about you, Minister? Yes. Just a little something? Okay. So, Ambassador, the Honorable Audrey Marks, Minister of Responsibility for Efficiency, Innovation, and Digital Transformation. She is a pioneering Jamaican diplomat, an entrepreneur, first woman and longest serving Jamaican ambassador to the United States, and she's now serving, as you know, as a senator, member of parliament, and cabinet minister. And she is the driver of efficiency and digital transformation in Jamaica. And she also leads in her own personal philanthropic youth initiatives. That's all I'll give them, Minister. It's now your podium. Please welcome her.
Thank you so much, Mr. MC. I just realized we did have a bit of an oversight. We did not have a little entertainment in between the long speaking. Next time. But let me ask you all to just stand for a moment. You have gone 1 hour sitting. Just stand and stretch a bit so you don't start giving me a cross eye, even though I'm only going to be speaking for about 10 minutes. Please, have a seat. You're actually much more efficient than I thought we would be, because we have the Prime Minister coming at 4, and we thought we would have been going right up to 4. My remarks about 10 minutes, so we might be finished with the agenda as it now stands, but we can take questions until the Prime Minister gets here. And it started with a very efficient presentation in terms of the World Bank report. But let me say, it's a pleasure to be here. And it's a pleasure to be here because although there are some challenges in the World Bank report for Jamaica, coming from where I'm coming from, in trying to start electronic payments, 25 years ago, I've been every year I make the date a little shorter so I don't age myself. So I'm now saying 25 years ago when I started to try electronic payments. It was so much of a more difficult period. But we are I can tell you, the government is now very focused and we are fully engaged in this process now. And I'm privileged to feel like the mother. Well, let me go back to what they have now called me in my constituency, auntie of this whole drive for digital transformation. So I feel very pleased to be here today for this World Bank report on digital transformation and financial inclusion. I want to acknowledge first my colleague, Minister Hill, thank you for coming. I know others seem to be running a bit short. Thank you for coming. And of course, our permanent secretaries, with my own permanent secretary, General Ambassador Rocky Mead. I want to also recognize and ask you to stand the team that I'm working with from the World Bank. Mr. Jean-Michel, yes, Antoinette Grant, Bernard Myers, Harish Naraja, all of you have been, where's Antoinette? Oh, she's here? I wasn't seeing her, she stepped out, okay. I want to acknowledge you because you have been doing so much work, and it's such a pleasure working with you. And our own Kathy Park-Thwaites, thank you for being part of that push to get us here today. And of course, the entire team at OPM that is working on the digital projects that we are working on. My remarks today is on a theme that was introduced by our Prime Minister in his budget presentation. And it captures Jamaica's journey, Jamaica's recent journey and our future ambition, from resilience to resurgence. And I've added, from resilience to resurgence, powered by digital transformation and innovation. And Dr. Robinson, I heard your presentation. I heard that you did say you're going to try and facilitate more innovation at the central bank. But then you went right on to say, and by doing more regulations. It's a bit of an oxymoron. So we are going to work closely together so we can have innovation really fly with the guidance of the World Bank. Because in some things we just need not more regulations, just appropriate regulations. Over the past few years, Jamaica has demonstrated remarkable resilience amid a global pandemic and most recently, the third most powerful hurricane in recorded history, Hurricane Melissa. Despite these shocks, Jamaica has maintained economic stability, safeguarded livelihoods, and through it all, we have adapted. During these disruptions, we moved services online and accelerated digital adoption. We reimagined how government and citizens interact, and so today we are positioned for resurgence. And it is my job to ensure that this resurgence is powered intentionally and strategically by digital transformation and innovation. At the center of Jamaica's transformation is a simple but powerful idea. Every Jamaican must be able to fully participate in the digital economy we are creating, and it begins with financial inclusion. The government has made real progress in improving the state of financial inclusion in Jamaica, and the World Bank in its report has indicated that over 70% of adults have access to a bank account. But access alone is not enough. The real measure of inclusion is usage. How people actually engage in financial services in their daily lives. And we have much work to do to improve that engagement. According to the report, only about half of Jamaicans actively use digital payments. Mobile wallet adoption remains very low. Transactions are still heavily cash-based in many communities, and digital financial tools are not yet reaching their full potential. This represents the digital gap between resilience and resurgence. But the government has been working assiduously to build technology and systems that will close this divide. In 2017, the government established a Transformation Implementation Unit to guide the transformation in a structured way to increase the overall effectiveness of public service delivery and contribute to the wage and GDP targets. In 2019, the Parliament passed the Information Communications Technology Authority, the ICTA Act. And I see Mrs. Anika Shuttleworth here. She's our CEO and CIO of the ICTA, with a clear mandate to strengthen governance, accelerate digital transformation, and build a more efficient, connected, and citizen-focused government. In 2020, the Data Protection Act, which was passed, and it became fully effective in December 2023. This act regulates how personal data is collected, processed, and stored to protect individual privacy. And following the passing of the Cyber Crimes Act, the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team was established, and Jamaica has now implemented the National Cybersecurity Framework and Cyber Incidents Response Plan to protect citizens and institutions in an increasingly digital environment. And it's important to emphasize that, because sometimes the fear of taking up digital tools and pushing for more financial inclusion is really hampered by the fear. Will my data be protected? And so it's very important that the citizens of this country know that we are not just pushing in one direction of having more digital tools, but we are also building safeguards along the way to protect citizens' data and citizens' rights overall in the financial ecosystem. In 2021, the National Identification and Registration Act, NERO, came into effect and established a single authority to administer and maintain a unique, secure, and verifiable identity for every citizen via the National Identification Card. And you're going to be hearing more of that as we roll out the National Identification Card. In March 2026, we implemented the e-transaction and digital signatures policy, which removed the age-old need for wet signatures. Now that's a big step forward in terms of allowing digital transformation to take place, where we can do more services online and we can sign documents online. And this month, In this month of April 2026, the Jamaica Data Exchange Platform was launched. This platform will allow secure data sharing across all ministries, agencies, and departments, and allow Jamaica to fully implement digital transformation tools and improve digital financial inclusion. So we are laying the foundation and making solid progress in our march to a digital society. The report by the World Bank, Unlocking Digital Financial Inclusion in Jamaica, comes at a defining moment in this journey. It affirms something we already know. Jamaica has the building blocks, but we must now unlock, scale, access, and innovation. As we heard, the report highlights several structural challenges: a highly concentrated financial sector that limits competition. And I'm so happy that the report shows that with a broadened financial system, where we have more competition, President of the Bankers Association, Mrs. Audrey Tugwell. Henry, good to see you here. Ms. Cherie Martin, CEO of NCB, two of our biggest players, you are here. And what we are seeing in the report is that more competition can also lead to more profitability for all players. So I am looking for your support as we go along this path. We see where regulatory gaps have restricted innovation, Dr. Robinson, particularly for non-bank players. And you mentioned the RTGS, and I turned right away and asked Mrs. Tugwell Henry, why are the banks holding up the progress? And she said, we are ready. So I want you both to have a conversation. Payment infrastructure that is slower and more costly than global standards. No, we cannot continue to have that. We have made a significant investment in a new broadband that will be coming to Jamaica. By later September, October, we should start seeing that being built out. So we are going to do the infrastructure work so that we can have more access to what you need to increase interoperability across systems. And barriers, we know that too many barriers now exist that makes it difficult for Jamaicans to fully engage in the financial systems. So all of those things were highlighted, and we have noted them, and we are going to work on them. And I'm so happy so many of our partners in the financial industry are here, because we have to work together to overcome these barriers. Most importantly, the report did not stop at identifying problems. It lays out a pathway to resurgence, and with the acts that are currently in place and other policies currently in effect and those being developed, we can power our resurgence through innovation and strong political will. Now, the Prime Minister has a full schedule today, and he's still making the time to come and be with us to say a few words, just to make sure that it's clear that the full political will is here for our drive to financial innovation, financial inclusion. And so I want to emphasize that under the leadership of Prime Minister Holness, this government is committed to building a modern digital Jamaica. We are determined to advance the digital public infrastructure to ensure that there is greater adoption of JAMDEX and digital payments. And PM, here you are. I was just speaking about you. That means you're going to live a long time. Yeah. I just mentioned that you have a full schedule today, but you're making the time to come because the digital adoption that we are seeking is a very important part of your vision. And I'm going on to say, under the leadership of Prime Minister Andrew Holness, this government is committed to building a modern digital Jamaica. We are determined to advance digital public infrastructure, greater adoption of JAMDEX and digital payments, regulatory reforms to enable innovation and competition, and partnerships with global institutions, including the World Bank, and again, thank you, the IDB, and Mr. Jerry Johnson, I see that you are here. Very good to see you. And the representative from IDB and the EU, the European Union, the government of India, among others, to guide evidence-based transformation. Our goal is clear: to create a digital ecosystem that is inclusive, efficient, and globally competitive. But resurgence is not delivered by government alone. It requires all of us. And so, financial institutions, again, Mrs. Audrey Togwell-Henry, must embrace innovation. Fintechs must push boundaries. Businesses must adopt digital tools, and citizens must be empowered to participate confidently in the digital economy. This is a shared mission. In conclusion, Jamaica has already proven its resilience. Now we must prove our capacity for resurgence. We have the insights through this World Bank report and other reports that were undertaken. We have the technology and an authority empowered to produce innovation, and we have the partnerships. Let us seize this moment to transform our financial system. Let us unlock the opportunity for every Jamaican, and let us build a future where digital transformation is not just a policy, but a pathway to prosperity. From resilience to resurgence, powered by digital transformation and innovation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Marks. And as we have noted the arrival of our Prime Minister, I will not delay him unduly. As you mentioned, Minister, the Prime Minister's administration has pursued macroeconomic reforms and a modernization agenda, including digital government, public infrastructure. And for that reason, as we move to the close of this first segment of the afternoon's proceedings, our Prime Minister will deliver the closing address. Now, I understand that the Prime Minister will be taking a few questions after his presentation. And Minister Marks, and the World Bank, and we all. And I know you will have some questions, and I hope you will keep them focused on the matter at hand. But without any further delay, the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Theodore. Master of Ceremonies, Ambassador the Honorable Audrey Marks, Minister of Efficiency, Innovation, and Digital Transformation. That's a huge title. We place a lot of store in what you do, and that we have carved out a section of the government to address this shows the seriousness of the government in these matters. I'm not seeing Minister Williams. I have her on my... No, Minister Williams should be here, but I see the Financial Secretary. No, not here as well. Well, in their place, let me acknowledge Minister Hill and other members of the government and permanent secretaries who may be here. Mr. Harish Natarajan. Harish, I like your title, Practice Manager. That's a proper term. I've never heard it before, but I like it. I think I will adopt it. Practice Manager, Financial Inclusion and Infrastructure, Finance, Competitiveness and Innovation, World Bank and other members of the World Bank team. Dr. Wayne Robertson, Senior Deputy Governor of the Bank of Jamaica, representatives of public and private sector bodies, representatives of the media, ladies and gentlemen, it is a good afternoon. And this afternoon's discussions have been both timely and substantive. They have brought forward valuable insights grounded in data, experience, and practical engagement. I wish to acknowledge the contributions of the World Bank, our national stakeholders, and our development partners, whose work continues to strengthen Jamaica's policy landscape. What has emerged clearly from this dialogue is a balanced understanding of where Jamaica stands, recognizing both the meaningful progress we have made and the significant opportunities that remain ahead. Importantly, this engagement reflects a shared commitment to evidence-based policy, innovation, and reform that is practical and implementable. By the way, this doesn't mean that we're not going to target things that may be difficult. This is still an expression of our ambition. The true value of these discussions, however, will not be measured by the quality of analysis alone, but by the strength of the actions and partnerships that follow. That is the standard by which we must judge ourselves. Jamaica understands resilience. It is not an abstract concept to us. It is a lived experience embedded in our national story. But resilience alone is not enough. Resilience allows a nation to withstand difficulty. It does not by itself guarantee progress. The true test of leadership is whether moments of disruption are transformed into opportunities for advancement. To recover is necessary. To advance is imperative. Recovery restores what was lost. Resurgence creates something greater than what existed before. That distinction is not rhetorical. It has practical consequences for every policy choice we make, particularly in the context of how we approach post-Melissa reconstruction. A nation that is rebuilding has a choice that every stable nation has, but rarely gets to execute. We can restore what existed, or we can decide to build what should have existed. Melissa has forced reconstruction of roads, schools, health facilities, and housing at a scale that would otherwise have taken us decades to do. The question is whether we do this with the systems and standards of the past, or whether we use this moment to embed digital infrastructure, resilient design, and modern governance into the foundations of the Jamaica we are building forward. That is the obligation of leadership, to ensure that the Jamaica which emerges from this is stronger, more connected, and more prepared than the one that existed before Melissa. This means greater investment and genuine innovation. It means new ideas becoming new industries, and new industries becoming new jobs and new opportunities. It means refusing to be constrained by systems that no longer serve us, outdated processes, unnecessary friction, governance that moves slower than the economy it is designed to support. And it means ensuring that growth, when it comes, is not concentrated in the hands of few, but reaches across communities and generations. That is precisely why we are establishing the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority. Construction at the scale and speed required cannot be managed through ordinary administrative channels at ordinary administrative speed. NARA's mandate is clear: move fast, coordinate across institutions, cut through bureaucracy without cutting corners, and deliver results that are visible to the people who most need them. At the center of that transformation is digital capability. Countries are no longer competing solely on geography and natural resources. I recently had an opportunity to address a body of well-established Jamaicans overseas. And I made the point that the old way of thinking about our economy and our society, which we have had that frame of thought for the last 50 years, will not carry us for the next 50 years. One of the ways in which we think of ourselves, we like to think of ourselves as having an exceptionally well-placed island in terms of our geography. So our geography is an asset. We like to say we're the center of the Caribbean. We're in close proximity to all the shipping lanes. Therefore, logistics is such a great opportunity for us. And it is. But that alone in and of itself is not the way forward. We like to think of ourselves as a fairly well-resourced island. We've had bauxite. We have some of the best quality foods and in terms of agriculture and agro-processing. We have great opportunities in limestone. We have all kinds of resources. So we tend to look at our economic opportunities in terms of geography and in terms of resources. But for us to compete, take advantage of those, we have to now consider agility, efficiency as a resource. Indeed, countries that don't have our geography, that don't have our resources, are outcompeting us, have far larger GDP than we do, several times over. And what is the main resource that they have? Agility, efficiency. They create an environment where people want to come and live, want to do business. I mean, that's what we say in our Vision 2030, Jamaica, the place of choice to live, work, do business, raise families. We must truly change our mindset to make efficiency and productivity a resource for Jamaica. That will be the new frame of thinking about our economy, about our society. Efficiency as a resource, productivity as a resource. So countries are no longer competing solely on geography and natural resources. They are competing on agility. They are competing on how efficiently they can move data and on the ability to deploy technology effectively. We need to embrace digital transformation. We need to embrace the digital society. We have seen this clearly in the case of countries like Estonia, which rebuilt its entire public administration around a digital identity and data exchange architecture, not simply moving existing processes online, but redesigning how the state functions. The result is a public service that operates with a fraction of the bureaucracy at significantly lower cost and with measurably higher citizens' trust. That is the standard of ambition we must hold ourselves to. So it's not digitization for digitization's sake, because it sounds great or that's the next fad. That's not what we're about. But a fundamental redesign of how we govern and how we serve. Jamaica has already taken many meaningful steps in this direction. You could look at Tax Administration Jamaica online platform with reduced compliance costs for thousands of businesses. One of the things that I'm really happy about that I was able to move through quickly with the support of Minister Vaz and Minister Marks was the motor vehicle registration online and the removal or redefining the requirement for fitness. People stop me all the time and say, thank you for that, Prime Minister. I don't have to be in this long line. And it's really meaningful. We did that as a sign to the public to say, if you embrace digitization, this is how much it will save you in real time and resources. So we have been taking some steps. And these are not isolated improvements. They are part of a broader shift towards a more responsive and citizen-centered state. A small entrepreneur in Clarendon can now access markets beyond local boundaries, reaching customers across Jamaica and internationally. Manufacturers can optimize supply chains through digital systems. Tourism operators can connect instantly with global audiences. And these are practical transformations that improve competitiveness and generate growth. In education, we are again integrating digital transformation in terms of how we train our students. We are now able to bring more rural students into access training. And in finance, the implications are even more promising. Digital platforms, online banking, electronic transfers, mobile application, and Jamaica's Jamdex system should be making transactions faster, safer, more convenient is in my script, but I want to add one more, Governor of the Bank of Jamaica and all the bankers who are here, Audrey, cheaper. I noticed I didn't say more affordable. Transaction costs must go down. I should not be considering the cost of transferring money online. I shouldn't have to have that consideration. Governor of the Bank of Jamaica, if we use the RTGS system, we shouldn't have to consider a cost. Read my expressions, not just my words. And I think this is where the effort really needs to be focused on. Digitization for financial inclusion. We have not moved fast enough on this matter. We took a step, we invested in Jamdex. One would have thought that by now the take-up and use of Jamdex would have been much more than it is. One of the reasons why I have appointed a minister for this is to ensure that it happens. There's just too many excuses, too many interests that are divergent. It's not in Jamaica's interest not to have a fully digital financial system. And whatever it takes to get it done, Minister, you have my 100% support. We must get it done. During the pandemic, for the first time, Jamaica had the ability to provide social welfare interventions to its citizens. the problem was not money at that time. The problem was, how do we get the money to the people virtually, because the pandemic prevented physical transactions. And that is when we really understood the significant social loss of not having a fully banked society, of not having financial inclusion. It was a nightmare to get people registered, get their bank accounts, to individually identify them. And, you know, the funny thing is that when we went to Parliament, this time it was about money. We were in Parliament discussing the distribution of care packages for communities that we had to quarantine. And the discussion by the opposite side was that just give the people the food packages, man. Don't ask them for any IDs. We well knew that the same people who are saying that would come back to the PAAC and the PAC and said, how did you give out food packages to people you can't identify them? So we knew that whatever we did, we had to have a strong accountability mechanism. Had we at that time structured and delivered the NIDS, the National Identification System, and had a fully digital payment and transaction platform with the society fully banked, it would be the push of a key on a keyboard and the delivery of the resources to the people who needed it. In identifying people who should receive whatever care or support packages, everyone would have their ID be simple to show, and the verification process would be easy. But we know the history of the opposition to having this kind of digital platform and identification. One did not think that 4 or 5 years after, we would have Hurricane Melissa, where communities were cut off, and we would have to again provide welfare benefits en masse, or care packages, humanitarian relief packages to persons. And then the question again would arise, how do we give out packages to people we can't identify? And how did you use the money that you got? This is a perfect example of how the integration of technology reduces the bureaucracy and improves accountability. So we need to get this done, Minister. We've been talking about it. We've been going around in circles. As I said, there are divergent perspectives on a unified payment platform, divergent perspectives on which systems to use. We need to make some final decisions, put in place the legislation. Legislation, much of it is already in place. And we may need to use some moral suasion on the actors to ensure that the digital transformation in the financial sector in particular moves quickly. And that when it is done, the promise of faster transactions, more convenient transactions, but I'm going to stick to my term, cheaper transactions. Jamaicans understand when I say cheaper versus less expensive or affordable. Right? The transactions costs are too high, much too high. So I think I've made my point. So thank you, everyone.
All right, so before we go to the questions, which I know are burning, we're going to do a presentation at this moment. So, inviting Mr. Naranjan to join us here. And Mr. Prime Minister, you as well.
Let me also acknowledge Dr. Wayne Henry, who was joined us. Yes. Yes, please come and join us.
So I was mentioning that from 2000 to 2015, Jamaica was one of the leaders in the payment space globally as well as in Latin America. But from 2015 to now, Jamaica has ceded a lot of ground, and now it is actually the second. It is in the bottom 50% of the progress in Latin America. So there's a lot of ground to cover, but the foundations are in place in Jamaica, and critical reforms are needed, in particular related to kind of the competition side as well as improving the infrastructure.
Okay. So it's not so good news, but still there is hope.
Well, yeah, exactly. More competition in the market.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. And here we go. Yes, thank you. We'll just we'll take a few. And as you know, right after this part of this program, we are going to take a break. And we are going to come back to this room. It's going to be a little different setting, and we'll have a fireside chat that will be hosted by Dr. Wayne Henry and Mrs. Audrey Tugwell Henry, the president of the Jamaica Bankers Association. So we'll speak more about how to make these recommendations become even more practical in our day-to-day operations. But for now, we are open to some questions on the report. Prime Minister, you're welcome to stay. You're not being put on the spot for questions, but you're welcome to stay. Okay, all right. Members of the media, if you have any questions. I know one question that was asked, Dr. Robinson, was how soon we could see the RTGS moving from 1 o'clock to 24 hours. And a lot of young entrepreneurs are asking. So probably we could start with that question.
All right. I don't want to give up precise timelines. We have to work with the banks. Each bank has different back office processing systems and verification systems. So we have to work with them to try and ensure we have a little bit more standardization. Right? But, yes, we are. Yes, we are.
All right, and then maybe Mrs. Audrey Tugwell Henry can say something about the bank's readiness to implement that system. Mrs. Cherie Martin, if you want to say something too about the readiness, we'll.
Good afternoon, everyone, Prime Minister. Thank you for the opportunity, Ambassador Marks. Well, certainly the financial services sector, and more specifically the deposit-taking institutions that I represent in my capacity as the president of the Jamaica Bankers Association, we have made significant strides in supporting advancements in digital, and not just strides, but we have made significant financial investments in the infrastructure to support this. We have worked very well with the Bank of Jamaica on RTGS. We were very, very happy to upgrade to ISO 222. There were some challenges initially, but we have overcome them in the main. And we are also very willing to go to a 24-hour service. It requires a lot of coordination around the specifications and so on, but we are open to it, and we are very pleased to advise that the Jamaica Bankers Association, in working with JETS, the owners of Multilink, and the Bank of Jamaica, we have an arrangement and a working group to introduce a account-to-account transfer system, which is, for those persons who are familiar with Zelle, it's very similar to Zelle. It's a 24-hour real-time payment system that will be very inclusive. So that's in addition to when the Bank of Jamaica is ready to go 24/7 with RTGS. We'll be very happy to engage around that. Well, Prime Minister, we're not playing hot potato. It is a real collaboration that is required, but I would say that based on where we are, the account-to-account transfer system will be delivered in this year for a pilot, so that is more ready. But we can't do everything, but we'll stage it, and RTGS, I'm sure the Bank of Jamaica will work with us on a time frame for that.
Okay, thank you. We had a meeting about 2 months ago, and we'll continue meeting Prime Minister to ensure that we can get to more definitive timelines. Any questions from the media? No? Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe for Dr. Robinson, but generally, what are the indicators of effective financial literacy? What behavior changes are you looking for? How do you know if you are successful and you are making progress?
Yes, so let me provide some general metrics, and of course it might have to be customized for the Jamaican context. I think in financial literacy, what you're trying to measure is, does a person know the basics of carrying out financial transactions? Does the person know the basics about particular financial products? And does the person understand what is an interest rate? Is able to compare two different products and say which is better for the person's circumstances? Also able to understand what does the person need to save to meet the person's goals in life? So that is what you're trying to measure from a financial literacy perspective. There are some surveys and methodologies for that. And in the case of Jamaica, this is an area in which the central bank has invested quite a bit. And it includes kind of introduction in the school curriculum, some of the financial education aspects. But also it requires identifying the right moments when a person is making a decision and providing the right insight and right input at that time. And these moments could include when the person first takes a job, when the person is applying for the first loan, or when the person is making a big decision. Those are the moments when giving targeted inputs in a manner which the person understands would be helpful. There are a lot of digital ways of doing things now, and it actually makes it easier for the person to understand, plus also to deliver. Of course, for the Jamaican context, I will let Dr. Morrison to talk about that, but that's the global perspective. Yes.
I don't think I can add any more to that. I think he has covered the broad spectrum. At the end of the day, the litmus test is really the usage and then how early persons actually enter the banking system.
Any more questions? Any more? No? Well,
Minister, we do have some from online.
Okay.
There's one here regarding the opening of these accounts. Will we reduce how hard it is to open these sorts of accounts, make it more efficient?
Well, that was, one of the recommendations from the World Bank report, that we must make the financial inclusion, including opening accounts, a bit more accessible. So the bankers are here. You have heard their commitment to have a more efficient system. So it will be addressed.
I have another. The question is, why doesn't DBJ lend directly to businesses instead of through banks? Why not use its own digital platform?
Minister Hill will answer that question.
I used to be on the board of DBJ.
Used to be a bank.
And the issue is, at a certain time, DBJ had to make up its mind whether it's going to continue and expand in bricks and mortar. And the kind of infrastructure and capacity it would need to do that. It said, why should we build bricks and mortar when the banks, the AFIs, the approved financial institutions, have that already? And so they moved away from looking to expand through branches. And we had the cooperative banks that at some time, until recently, I think, was associated with DBJ. So they decided that they did not have to. Now, something that's going to happen, as it's in the press, that they're going to merge with Exim Bank, and there's a clear idea, Minister of Finance, the head of DBJ, and so on. We have agreed that there has to be a carve-out to serve MSMEs, because the MSMEs, when I ran NCB, we know they don't go into banks. They don't want to go into banks. It's not easy for them. So what I know Dr. Lowe at DBJ is looking at is, how do we use technology? Every one of those MSMEs, whether they're professors or handcart drivers, have one or two smartphones. We need to be able to use that technology to make sure that we give them loans through it and collect money through it. Collection of money is something that they have to look at. But DBJ is looking at it, but that's the reason why. They didn't want to multiply bricks and mortar, which are very expensive. As you can see, many banks are closing some of their bricks and mortar, and we have to go more to technology. And that's where I think Dr. Lowe, who's very capable of doing this, is taking the institution.
So we are going to wrap up now, so I just wanted to say to the World Bank team, thank you for this report. We are very competitive people, and we are very good at sprinting, so we fell a little behind, and you told us that Ghana and Brazil and India and all these countries have moved ahead, but we are in the blocks, and we are going to be moving very quickly to regain our pace and to become a society that fully allows access for financial inclusion for all our citizens. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as the minister mentioned, we are going to go to a break now, about 20 minutes, meet and greet, refresh, get the blood pumping again, so please get up. And then we will return to the banquet room where we will be having that closed-door fireside discussion. Don't let the name put you off. You are all welcome and invited. There are two main things that we'll be dealing with in that session: opportunities and obstacles for digital payments, and a sort of roundtable on reform priorities and next steps. Our two leaders in those fields will be Lady Audrey Tugwell Henry, the president of the Jamaica Bankers Association, and Dr. Wayne Henry, the director general of the Planning Institute of Jamaica. It's 4:20, 20 minutes from now. Please be back here. Thank you.